A terrified 911 call. A dead husband. And evidence that proved the fear was fake. Before we continue, let me take this opportunity to thank you so much for supporting our channel. Just choosing to watch our video means a lot to us. Before we go any further, tell us where are you watching from. Drop your city or country below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if this is your first time here. Watch to the end. The last part will shock you. At exactly 2:13 a.m., a whisper cut through the silence of the emergency dispatch line. "Please, I think someone is in my house." The woman's voice trembled, thin and breathless, as though every sound around her carried danger. "My husband went downstairs," she continued. "I heard him scream. I'm hiding in the bedroom. I don't know where the intruder is." Her name was Melissa Grant. The dispatcher did what dispatchers are trained to do, kept her talking, asked calm questions, assured her that police were on the way. In the background, there were faint noises. A soft thump. A distant creak. Melissa whispered again. "I think he's still here." Within minutes, multiple patrol units were racing toward the Grants' quiet suburban home. What officers would find inside would shatter the illusion Melissa tried so desperately to create. Because there was no intruder, and the danger hadn't come from outside the house. The Grant residence sat on a well-lit street lined with trimmed hedges and identical mailboxes. It was the kind of neighborhood where porch lights stayed on all night, and neighbors waved politely but rarely pried. Crime was rare. Violence was almost unheard of. When officers arrived, they approached cautiously, weapons drawn, expecting a possible armed suspect inside. They knocked. No answer. The front door was unlocked. That was the first red flag. The house was eerily quiet. No overturned furniture. No shattered glass. No signs of forced entry. As officers cleared the first floor, they moved toward the living room. That's where they found Daniel Grant. He lay on his back near the fireplace, eyes open, unmoving. Blood pooled beneath his head, dark and already beginning to dry. He was clearly dead. The intruder Melissa had described had vanished without leaving a single trace. Upstairs, officers found Melissa exactly where she said she would be. She was curled into a corner of the bedroom, knees pulled to her chest, shaking uncontrollably. Her face was pale, streaked with tears. She clutched her phone as if it were a lifeline. She looked terrified, convincing. When officers told her Daniel was dead, she screamed. It echoed down the hallway. For a moment, even seasoned officers felt sympathy. But sympathy doesn't last long in a crime scene. Facts matter more. Melissa repeated her story to detectives at the scene. She and Daniel had gone to bed just after midnight. She was asleep when a loud noise woke her. Daniel got up to check downstairs. Seconds later, she heard a scream. Then footsteps. She locked herself in the bedroom and called 911. She insisted she never saw the intruder. Never heard a voice. Never confronted anyone. She was too scared. On the surface, it sounded plausible, until investigators began looking at the details. The medical examiner arrived before dawn. Based on body temperature, blood coagulation, and rigor mortis, the estimate was clear. Daniel Grant had been dead at least 30 to 45 minutes before the 911 call was made. That meant Melissa didn't call for help immediately. She waited. And people who wait during emergencies usually have a reason. Blood spatter analysis revealed something else. Daniel hadn't been attacked while running through the house. He'd been struck while sitting or standing still, likely facing the fireplace. There was no sign of defensive wounds. No evidence of a struggle with a stranger. The murder weapon, a heavy fireplace poker, was found washed clean in the kitchen sink. Too clean. Almost deliberately so. Detectives began interviewing friends, family, and coworkers. The picture that emerged was far from the happy marriage Melissa had described. Melissa and Daniel argued frequently. About money. About control. About trust. Daniel was described as reserved, structured, and increasingly suspicious. Melissa was described as restless, resentful, and emotionally distant. And then there was the affair. Melissa had been involved with a coworker for months. Text messages revealed late-night conversations filled with frustration and longing. She complained about feeling trapped, about Daniel ruining her life, about wanting freedom. One message stood out. "Sometimes I wish he would just disappear." Detectives circled it in red. Back at the station, investigators replayed the 911 call repeatedly. Once you removed the fear from the context, something became obvious. Melissa never panicked. She never screamed. Her breathing was controlled. Her words carefully chosen. She described events, but not emotions. It sounded rehearsed. Detectives brought Melissa in for a formal interview. They laid out the timeline inconsistencies, the forensic evidence, the messages. At first, she denied everything. Then she shifted tactics. She claimed Daniel had become aggressive that night, that he threatened her, that she grabbed the poker in fear. But the medical examiner's report contradicted her. Daniel had been struck from behind, multiple times, after he was already down. This wasn't self-defense. It was execution. When detectives explained that the 911 call had been placed long after Daniel's death, Melissa finally broke. She admitted there was no intruder. She said she panicked, that she didn't know what to do, that calling 911 felt like the only way to survive what she'd done. She thought if she sounded scared enough, the truth would disappear. It didn't. Melissa Grant was arrested for murder and filing a false emergency report. The woman who once whispered fear into a phone now sat silent in a holding cell. Her performance was over. The courtroom was packed. Prosecutors methodically dismantled Melissa's story, showing how every detail of the crime contradicted her claims. They played the 911 call for the jury. Once, it sounded like fear. Now it sounded like deception. The defense argued emotional distress, panic, confusion. The jury wasn't convinced. Melissa Grant was found guilty of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to decades in prison. As the judge read the sentence, Melissa showed no emotion. Daniel Grant's family did. This case wasn't about an intruder. It was about a lie so carefully crafted that it almost worked. A lie whispered into a phone in the dead of night. Because sometimes, the most terrifying thing isn't a stranger breaking into your home. It's the person already inside.